Good morning, dear students. Just I wish to give a few explanation regarding the first lesson, the third level in your vistas. The presidents of the New York Central and the New York, New Haven, and Hartford railroads will swear on a stack of timetables that there are only two. Means the Grand Central Station. As per that, there were only two railway stations. There were only two platforms. But I say there are three. Here I means Charlie. He says there were three platforms in the Grand Central Station. And the reason he says because I have been on the third level of the Grand Central Station. Yes, I have taken the obvious step. I talked to psychiatrist friend of mine, among others. I told him about the third level at Grand Central Station, and he said it was a waking dream wish fulfillment. He said I was unhappy. That made my wife kind of mad, but he explained that he meant the modern world is full of insecurity, fear, war, worry, and all the rest of it, and that I just want to escape. Well, who doesn't? Everybody I know wants to escape, but they don't wander down into any third level at Grand Central Station. So the first paragraph shows that, according to Charlie, there were three platforms in the Grand Central Station, and he talked this to his psychiatrist friend, but the psychiatrist friend was not ready to agree his statement that he traveled to the third level of the Grand Central Station. And his explanation was, means psychiatrist friend's explanation was, the modern world is full of insecurity. So Charlie also feels this insecurity, fear, war, worry, etc. And he wanted to escape from the modern world, the realities of the modern world. So he himself created such a third level in the Grand Central Station. But Charlie says that everyone wanted to escape from the modern world, the realities. But why did he reach the third level of Grand Central Station? So this would be the question. Now come to the second paragraph. But that is the reason, he said. And my friends all agreed. Everything points to it, they claimed. My stamp collecting, for example, that is a temporary refuge from reality. Well, maybe, but my grandfather didn't need any refuge from reality. Things were pretty nice and peaceful. So here in this paragraph, you can see the friends also agree that what Charlie explained it was completely unrealistic. He wanted to escape from the realities of the modern world. So his friends also didn't agree Charlie, and they all said that his stamp collection itself was a way to escape from the realities. But Charlie said his grandfather, who lived in the 19th century, he didn't want to escape from the reality, but he only started the hobby stamp collection. And his question was his grandfather didn't want to escape from the reality, then why did he start stamp collection or philately? Then come to the next page. In his day, from all I hear, and he started my collection. It's a nice collection too. Blocks of four of practically every US issue, first day covers, and so on. President Roosevelt collected stamps too. So Charlie's explanation was his grandfather started the collection, and even American President Roosevelt also had the hobby stamp collection. Considering them, we could not say that they wanted to escape from the reality. The American president Roosevelt, he could not escape from the reality because he was the president of a one of the biggest nations. He had a lot of responsibilities and duties towards the citizens. How he could escape from the reality? So this was the question posed by Charlie. Moreover, his grandfather who lived in the 19th century, there was no problem, no difficulties. So why did he start stamp collection? If they, American President Roosevelt or the grandfather, if they wanted to escape from the reality, then why did they start stamp collection? So this was the counter question of Charlie to his friends or to the psychiatrist. Come to the next paragraph. Anyway, here is what happened at Grand Central. Now, in this paragraph, Charlie was explaining to the readers what happened at Grand Central. Okay, this paragraph he explains what was his experience in Grand Central. One night, one night, last summer, I worked late at the office. I was in a hurry to get uptown to my apartment. Uptown, as we told, where there we could find a lot of apartments where the people stay together. So I decided to take the subway from Grand Central because it is faster than the bus. So in order to reach home very early, he decided to go by a train instead of bus. Now I don't know why this should have happened to me. He himself asked a question. I don't know why this should have happened to me. I'm just an ordinary guy named Charlie, 31 years old, and I was wearing a tan gabardine suit and a straw hat with a fancy band. So he himself asked a question why this happened to him. So this question is quite natural. The question is quite realistic. This happened to him. So we can give an answer. This happened to him because he wanted to escape from the reality. That is a simple answer for this question. Okay, come to the next sentence. I passed a dozen men who looked just like me, and I wasn't trying to escape from anything. I just wanted to get home to Louisa, my wife. So Charlie trying to support himself. Charlie was trying to say his Charlie was trying to support himself, that he just wanted to go and meet his wife Louisa. He did not want to escape from anything. I turned into Grand Central from Vanderbilt Avenue and went down the steps to the first level where you take trains like the 20th century. So the first level we could find trains like 20th century. Then, but he wanted to get a suburban train from the second level, so he walked towards the second level. Then I walked down another flight to the second level where the suburban trains leave from, ducked into an arched doorway heading for the subway. He then tucked into an arched doorway heading for the subway, and then he got lost. His intention was to reach the second level, but my mistake, he fell into an arched doorway. Then there he lost his way. I have been in and out of Grand Central hundreds of times. Many times I came to Grand Central and traveled to different places. But this time it's a new experience for me. It's a new experience for Charlie. Bumping into new doorways and stairs, and once I got into a tunnel about a mile long and came out in the lobby of the Roosevelt Hotel. So he was moving and he got into a tunnel about a mile long. Means he was lost in the midway, and now he started moving to different places. He couldn't understand where he was going to, where he was heading to. Sometimes to Roosevelt Hotel, another time he came upon in an office building on 46th Street, 3 blocks away. Sometimes I think Grand Central is growing like a tree, pushing out new corridors and staircases like roots. So it was the feeling of Charlie that he didn't understand that he was going to somewhere else or he lost his way, but he thought so that the Grand Central was growing like a tree. His intention was to reach the second level, but he didn't know where he was heading to. There's probably a long tunnel that nobody knows about, feeling its way under the city right now, on its way to Times Square and maybe another to Central Park. And maybe because for so many people through the years of Grand Central has been an exit here. This means the Grand Central has been an exit from means an exit for from the realities, from the worries, from the tensions, from all the problems they suffer. So the Grand Central has been an exit for them because they got solace when they reached the Grand Central Station. Many people they came to Grand Central for a solace. So that is the indirect meaning of this, because for so many people this part uh, because for so many people through the years Grand Central has been an exit, a way of escape from what? Escape from realities, escape from the worries, escape from the tensions, escape from all the problems. Maybe that's how the tunnel I got into, but I never told my psychiatrist friend about that idea. Why didn't he say this to his psychiatrist friend? Because he would say, then again it would be very clearly told, very clearly his friend would explain that it would be completely the imagination of Charlie. It would be completely created by Charlie to escape from the reality. Because here he himself said that Grand Central has been an exit, a way of escape for many. So if he would say this to his psychiatrist friend Sam Weiner, surely he would come to the conclusion that this third level would be really a creation of Charlie. Now comes to the next paragraph. The corridor I was in began angling left and slanting downward, and I thought that was wrong. But I kept on walking. All I could hear was the empty sound of my own footsteps. I didn't pass a soul. Then I heard that sort of hollow roar ahead that means open space and people talking. The tunnel turned sharp left, so he was moving through a tunnel, and he could not hear the sound of anyone. He could hear only his own footsteps, and the tunnel turned sharp left. I went down a short flight of stairs and came out on the third level at Grand Central Station. For just a moment, I thought I was back on the second level. So he thought that he was back on the second level. But I saw the room was smaller, there were fewer ticket windows and train gates. How he could understand that he was in the third level of Grand Central Station. The room was smaller, then there were fewer ticket windows and train gates, and the information booth in the center was wood and old looking, and the main booth were of green eye shaded and long black sleeve protectors. The lights were dim and sort of flickering. Then I saw why they were open gas lights. Okay, some of them. Then come to the next page. Next page. Here, next thing is there were brass spittoons. You can see there were brass spittoons on the floor, and across the station a glint of light caught my eye. A man was putting a gold watch. A man was putting a gold watch from his pocket. He snapped open the cover and glanced at his watch and frowned. He wore a derby hat, a black four-button suit with tiny lapels, and a big black handlebar mustache. So this also show that. Then I looked around and saw that everyone in the station was dressed like the 1890 something. I never saw so many bird sideburns and fancy mustaches in my life. A woman walked in through the train gate. She wore a dress with a leg of mutton sleeves and skirts to the top of high buttoned shoes. Back of her, out on the tracks, I caught a glimpse of a locomotive, a very small Carrier and Ives locomotive with a funnel shaped stack. And then I knew. So from all this, he realized that he had reached a different level of the Grand Central Station. He realized he has reached somewhere else in the Grand Central Station, and this place is not. He realized he reached somewhere in the 1890s, not in the 20th century. He was living in the Charlie was living in the 20th century, but he realized he was in a different period. To make sure, I walked over to a newsboy and glanced at the stack of papers, means a collection of papers. It was The World. So you can see that the World, and The World hasn't been published for years. The lead story said something about President Cleveland. I have found that front page since the public library files, and it was printed June 11, 1894. So this all shows that uh, he could understand the date on the newspaper. It was June 11, 1894, and it was the newspaper called The World, which was not published in the 20th century. So this newspaper stopped publishing in the 20th century. Come to the next one. I turned towards the ticket count windows, knowing that here on the third level at Grand Central I could buy tickets that would take Louisa and me anywhere in the United States we wanted to go in the year 1894. And I wanted two tickets to Galesburg, Illinois. So Charlie's house was at Galesburg, Illinois. So he wanted to travel to Galesburg, Illinois. Have you ever been there? Now he speaks about his beautiful hometown. It's a wonderful town, old frame houses, huge lawns, and tremendous trees whose branches meet overhead and roof the streets. And in 1894, summer evenings were twice as long, and people sat out on their lawns, the men smoking cigars, talking quietly, the women waving palm leaf fans with fireflies all around in a peaceful world. And the most important thing, there were with the first world war still 20 years off and world war II over 40 years in the future. So I wanted two tickets for that. So he wanted two tickets to reach the 1894, where the world was free from the two world wars and it was a peaceful world. From this explanation that summer evenings were twice as long because of the beauty of the season, and people sat out on their lawns, men smoking cigars and talking quietly, the women waving palm leaf fans. So this all shows it was a very peaceful world, very peaceful, happy, quiet world, and free from America, free from the First World War and Second World War, because the First World War and Second World War thoroughly affected the country. Because America participated in the both the world wars, and it really affected the country in all ways, economically and military, and in every way, politically, every way it affected the country. Come to the next part. Here comes the problem. Here the problem starts. The clerk figured the fare. He glanced at my fancy headband, but he figured the fare and had enough for two coach tickets one way. But when I counted out the money and looked up, the clerk was staring at me. He nodded the bills. This isn't money, mister, he said. And if you're trying to skin me, you won't get very far. If you're trying to cheat me, you won't get very far. And he glanced at the cash drawer beside him. Of course, the money was old style bills. You can see the money was old style bills in 1894. Half again asked because the money we use nowadays, the dollars which we use nowadays, and different looking. I turned away and got out last fast. There is nothing nice about jail even in 1894. So that's what he told. If you're trying to skin him, then he would be put in jail. He would not go far. So, but what's the difference between the present dollar and the dollar in 19th century? So the 19th century dollars look like old style bills, half again as big as the money we use nowadays, and a different looking. So that's the difference between the present dollar and the dollar in the 19th century. And that was that. I left the same way I came, I suppose. Next day during lunch hour, I drew $300. How much? He drew $300 out of the bank. Then nearly we had and bought old style currency because he wanted to go to the third level and to reach the 19th century. So he bought old style currency. You can buy old money at almost any coin dealers, but you have to pay a premium. So my $300 bought less than 200 in old style bills. So when he converted the $300, he got only 200 in old style bills. But I didn't care because what's the reason? Because the prices were very less in the 19th century compared to 20th century. So compared to 20th century, the prices were very less for the commodities. So that's why, for example, eggs were only 13 cents a dozen in 1894, whereas the fare is bit high in 20th century. So this would not affect. Come to the next one. But I have never again found the corridor that leads to third level at Grand Central Station, although I have tried often enough. Louisa was pretty worried when I told her all this and didn't want me to look for the third level anymore. And after a while, I stopped. I went back to my stamps. So I told about, so in the next attempt, he couldn't find the third level, and he, in the normal way, he came to his house and he told Louisa about the third level where he reached in the previous day. And Louisa told he should not go for the third level again. My friend Sam Wiener disappeared. That is a hilarious thing. The surprising. My friend Sam Wiener disappeared. With Sam Wiener, his psychiatrist friend. Nobody knew where, but I sort of suspected because Sam is a city boy, and I used to tell him about Gilsberg because Gilsberg is in the outskirts. It's quite away from the city. Okay, we can say it is quite away from the city, whereas Sam is a city boy, and uh, Charlie used to say about his beautiful hometown to Sam Wiener. So Sam Wiener always wanted to visit Gilsburg, Illinois. He always wanted to visit. So I went to school there, and he always said he liked the sound of the place, and that's why where he is all right. So Sam was always longing to go back to Gilsburg, and Charlie felt that Sam Wiener he reached 1894 because he was very much wishing, he was very much longing to reach 1894, and Sam Wiener reached 1894. So this is just an imagination of Charlie, because one night, fussing with my stamp collection, I found, well, do you know what a first day cover is? When a stamp is issued, stamp collectors buy some and use them to mail envelopes to themselves on the very first day of sale, and the postmark proves the date. The envelope is called first day cover. So this is a very this is the definition of the first day cover. So this is the definition of first day cover. Starting from here, first day, this is the definition of first day cover. So they are never opened, you just put blank paper in the envelope. So what is the intention behind a first day cover? First day cover is the purpose is to, when a new stamps are issued, they will be pasted on the cover, and the same address will be written, their own address will be written and posted in the in the post box, so that when it is received in the post office, they put a stamp, they put a dated stamp on the, or dated seal on the stamps, so that you can see the date, that date symbol will be there on the stamps. So it shows which year these stamps were published and how long, how old those stamps were. So this is mainly done by the stamp collectors. So in our collection we could easily identify when I received this stamp or when these stamps were issued. So that is the main intention is to get a dated seal on the stamps, and there would not be any letter in the first day cover. But Charlie identified something different. Charlie identified a old cover among the first day covers of grandfather. That night, look the paragraph. That night, among my oldest first day covers, I found one that shouldn't have been there. But there it was. It was there because someone had mailed it to my grandfather at his home in Gilsburg. That's where the address on the envelope said. It had been there since July 18, 1894. So from the first day coverage date, we could easily find that it was written 1894. The postmark showed that I didn't remember at all. The stamp was a 6-cent dull brown with a picture of President Garfield. So it was a stamp with a picture of the President Garfield, and the date is July 18, 1894. When the envelope came to Grandad in the mail, it went right into his collection and stayed there till I took it out and opened it. Okay, let us see what is the content of the letter. Is written address 941 Willard Street, Gilsburg, Illinois, July 18, 1894. It means somebody from Gilsburg wrote this, sent this letter to grandfather, mailed to grandfather, but it was in the letter, it was addressed to Charlie. I got to wishing that you were right. Then I got to believing you were right. I got to wishing that you were right. First I wished that you were right. Then I really understood that you were right. I got to believing you were right. And Charlie, it is true. I found the third level. I have been here 2 weeks. And right now, down the street at the Dells, someone is playing a piano, and they are all out on the front porch singing Nellie Home, a very beautiful, famous American song, Sing Nellie Home, and I am invited over for lemonade. Come on back, Charlie and Luisa. Keep looking till you find the third level. It is worth it. Believe me. So, dear students, as per the letter, it shows that it was written by Sam Wiener, but can you identify his sign or his name anywhere? A person who writes the letter, the note is signed Sam. It is written the note is signed Sam, but here we cannot find the signature of Sam, or we cannot find the Sam's name below the letter. It shows that the note is signed Sam, that is mentioned by Charlie only, but here in the letter we cannot find his signature. So that's why I'm telling this is a purely a created letter by Charlie, and he created this letter and he put it in the one of the first day cover. The first day cover dated July 18, 1894. So Charlie, what he did was he created a letter to make him believe that his friend Sam Weiner, he reached Illinois, he reached Gilsburg a period in 1894. So Charlie wanted to make himself believe that. So he created this letter and he put it in one of the covers. So this would be the reality. The last paragraph. At the stamp and coin store I go to, I found that Sam bought $800 worth of old style currency that ought to set him up in a nice little hay feed and grain business. He always said that's what he really wished he could do. And he certainly can't go back to his old business. Not in Gillsburg, Illinois in 1894. His old business. Why? Sam was my psychiatrist. So, what he was doing in 1894? Yes, that out to set him up in a nice little hay feed and grain business. He always said that's what he really wished he could do. So Charlie wanted to make himself believe that his friend Sam Weiner he was doing a grain business in Gillsburg, and he could not be a psychiatrist in 1894. He could not be a psychiatrist in 1894 because he was a psychiatrist in 20th century. So in 1894, he was doing a different business, a grain business. And why Charlie wanted to make him believe like that? Because Sam Weiner told many times that his wish was to run a nice little hay feed and a grain business. So that's why Charlie wanted to make him believe like that. So, dear children, after reading this story, please try to believe that the third level is really a created one, an imagination of Charlie, his feelings of Charlie, just like we see in the daydreams or we see in night dreams, or we can say that it's a kind of it's an action of subconscious mind. Subconscious mind takes us to somewhere else, just like what happened to Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde when he met with an accident. Before that he was thinking about the different history of India, so the subconscious mind took him to the past. So when he woke up from the coma stage, he again came back to the normal stage. Gangadhar Pant Gaitonde came back, but when he was in the coma stage, his subconscious mind made him feel like that he had been gone to a different world, means he had been gone to the past of India where a different history could be seen. So these are all the games of mind. You could say these are all the changes in the mind or the different aspects of mind. So we know very well that the conscious mind, subconscious mind, unconscious mind, three minds are there. Conscious mind is the mind in the present where we interact, where we live, and subconscious mind is the one mainly when we are absent minded, our mind travels to somewhere else, that is the subconscious mind. And unconscious mind is the one where we are in the coma stage. In the coma stage, that is the unconscious mind. But in the unconscious mind, what happens? In the unconscious stage, what happens? The subconscious mind will be active, it will be working. So here this is all about the story, dear students. So why it is said that Sam Weiner also reached Gillsburg, Illinois in the period 1894, but it is also a created belief of Charlie. Thank you, students. Based on this lesson, if you have any doubts, you can raise. I wish to give you a few more questions based on this lesson, which you can complete. Thank you.